Hi, and welcome to the He's Playing Warhammer Demons Detachment review. I am He's Playing Warhammer, and this is the third video in a series where we're ranking and analysing each of the Chaos Demon detachments given to us from the recent Grotmas release. Today, we're going to be looking at Blood Legion, the Khorne-based detachment. I'm very looking forward to this. Whereas previously we've done Scintillating Legion as well as Demonic Incursion, and in the first video, Demonic Incursion, I gave you a little rundown on who I am and what I'm doing here on YouTube. So if you want to hear a little bit about that, go and check that video out. But let's get straight into the detachment review for Blood Legion. As I have done in my other videos, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the format I'm going to be using. Each attachment will get a score out of 40 points, and those 40 points will come from different parts of the detachment. 10 points will come from the detachment rule, 12 for the strats, 8 for enhancements, and 10 points at the end for overall synergy, how well I think the units can combine to create a competitive fighting force, and how well, it's basically a round off of how well I think it will do competitively at competitive tournaments in Warhammer. This will give us a final ranking, a score out of 40, which we can then place and compare to other detachments, and then there'll be a video at the end where I put it into a tier list and I really analyse and kind of compare how these detachments rank alongside each other and which is best suited for competitive Warhammer. So let's get straight into the detachment rule for this Blood Legion. There's a double barrel detachment rule, this one, with Murder Call and Blood Tainted, some amazing names. First off, I'll start off with Murder Call. This is a surge move you get to make when an enemy unit ends a move within 6 inches of you. You get to move d6 inches, and it's not a normal move, it's just a move, as long as you're not in engagement range. I'll come on to that in a minute. The other one is Blood Tainted. If you kill an enemy unit while you're within range of an objective marker that they are also within range of, that objective marker becomes sticky. Again, very thematic and cool. I love what they've done with this attachment. The first one I will talk about is Murder Call, the Surge move one. Surge moves are innately quite a powerful ability in Warhammer, and while they did get toned down, I think it was probably in November time, maybe October time, maybe a little bit later to be fair. You can only make one per turn per unit now, and you can't make the move if you're already in engagement range, which definitely makes it less powerful, but not powerful at all. And what I mean by that is, against certain opponents and certain armies, this could really wreck them, because what it will mean is that as long as your opponent is a good player, you create 6-inch, probably 7-inch auras of the board that your opponent then can't move into. Because if they do move into that 6-7-inch aura, I say 7 because if you roll a 6 and you get within an inch, you're within engagement. If you get within engagement, that could screw your opponent over. It means they can't shoot if they're not a monster or vehicle. Also means that you're going to fight first in their fight phase, and with Khorne units, every unit in this detachment, every unit in the detachment that can do this ability will be quite overjoyed with that, because it means you will fight first and get to take a chunk out of your opponent's unit. So they just won't do it. A decent opponent will mean that they won't go into these corners of the board, but even decent opponents will have to go into some of the corners at some points, right? I don't think any opponents are going to be able to stay away from this all game. So either it will mean them taking a risk that then means you can move into a ruin out of line of sight, or even into engagement range if you're savvy about it. Don't forget, you just have to end the move closer. So, you can just have one model going closer, and as long as the rest of the unit sort of follows suit, then you're okay. And yes, I did say good players will play around this, but I still think it's quite strong in creating those areas of the board that your opponent can't move into. And that works especially well with Blood Tainted, the sticky ability. Let's say you've got a unit of Bloodletters. They go onto a point, kill a unit of Scouts, right? And then, let's say they're out in the open because they have to be. In your opponent's turn, they can think, great, some Bloodletters on a point, let's go and kill them. If they just decide to shoot that unit off the point without putting anything on there themselves, you're going to still hold it, which is great. Added primary. You're getting up on them, because the point is then sticky, right? In order to unsticky it, they need to have OC on it, at least more, than at the end of any phase. And When you've got corn units on objectives that can then surge move if you move within 6 inches of them, which obviously you will be doing if you're on that objective marker, as long as you're not right on the corner. That unit that is then coming onto the point, you're going to be able to surge move into, lock them down. Can be very impactful as it says there as the game goes on, and units become scarce. Murder Call means that you control your opponent's movement. A Blood Tainted basically means that your opponent is going to have to really commit into you, really come forward in order to take you off these points, which as a corn player, happy days for you, right? You're going to be getting into them if they're coming towards you. That is why I've given this detachment 7 out of 10 grots is how I'm scoring it. 7 out of 10 grots. It's a pretty good score. You know, there are some play arounds, but I think as a base detachment rule, I think it's very strong in locking down your opponent. This is what corn units want to do. Next, let's go on to the enhancements. There's some interesting ones here. First, let's start off with Slaughterthirst. Units within 6 inches, not monsters, get Lance. So this is Soul Grinders. I won't really be mentioning Soul Grinders much in this video because it's quite hard to play in the UK, and often they have to be played on a base, which limits their usability. But units within 6 inches gets Lance, 35 points. Now, this is probably not very good, and I say that because in the Salaanesh detachment, which I will get onto in another video, the Legion of Exess, for 30 points they get units, not monsters, get add 1 to wounds, which not only is cheaper, obviously, but add 1 to wound is better than Lance, because Lance only happens on the charge, on the turn that you charged in, so it can be, it's not as good. So for 35 points, it's okay, and on units like a Renmaster on Blood Throne, that then they get the buff because they're mounted. Him being in the middle of the fight, he can maybe get it to 2, maybe 3 corn units that are within 6 inches. And getting Lance add 1 to wound is quite big, but for 35 points, it's not great. So that has got 1 out of 2 grots. Next up is Fury's Cage. This is amazing. I'll just tell you now. Fury's Cage, when you fight, you can choose to take D3 add 1 mortal wounds. If so, your unit can reroll hits and wounds until the end of the phase. Wow. So, if I'm remembering correctly, the only way that you can get rerolls on your corn units is the Bloodletter reroll, and that's a conditional reroll to wound ability, so not great. Being able to reroll the hit roll and the wound roll on really swingy units like Bloodthirsters makes so much of a difference, and if I'm honest, this enhancement really not carries the detachment because I think it's good, but bolsters its power. Getting a reroll hits, reroll wins Bloodthirster. You do take D3 add 1 mortal wounds, but don't forget, you're going to be able to heal them across the game, and D3 add 1 where you've got 18 wounds isn't that big of a deal, really. If you're doing it every time and you roll some 3s, then, you have to take it. But without saying too much, it's obviously very good. Next up is Brazen Maw. I really like this one too. This is a 20-point enhancement that just simply says the unit that this enhancement is equipped to gets add 2 inches to charge moves. Now, I'm going to reference a strat coming up, but this alongside Advance and Charge, becomes very powerful. I'll look at Advance and Charge later, but this means if you, let's say you put it on a unit like a Bloodthirst, which can already move 12 and through a wall, another strat, you can be moving 12 with an advance, right? So that's possibly 18, and then you get a charge with add 2. Obviously you need to be within 12 inches to declare that charge, but it means you've got a maximum threat range of about 32 inches with the add 2 to charge. No, it's probably about 30 inches, but you can hit it a bit more reliably because of the add 2 to charge, right? Or, if it's not on a unit like a Bloodthirster, you want it on a unit like Blood Crushers or Bloodletters, and because they have the lower base movement, they're going to be technically benefiting from this a bit more, because that 6-inch movement can then go up to, basically an 8-inch movement with the add 2 to charge moves, and then a charge, right, wherever you take the add 2, this is a great ability. It means you can be coming out of Deep Strike with add 3 inches on the Blood Crushers or Bloodletters, and basically make a guaranteed 6-inch charge instead of a 9. Very powerful. Finally, is Gateway Unto Damnation. This is a Deadly Demise auto ability. Well, I say auto, it's on a 2+, but I'm going to call it auto because, hey, don't roll ones. This means that as long as you've killed a unit in the game, which, you're going to basically, as long as you've not just chucked a whatever unit this is, it has to be a monster, into your opponent's face and not done anything. On a 2+, you do D3, add 3 damage on death. This can be put on a unit like a Demon Prince, even a Red Master on Blood Throne, or probably a Bloodthirster if you're going to use it. And it will just mean that your Deadly Demise is super powerful. You know, D3 add 3 damage is crazy big. Average of 5 mortal wounds to every target within 6 is good. I haven't done the points for the other one, so let me do that now. You can probably have guessed though, Fury's Cage and Brazen Maul were both 2 grots out of 2. Now, I've only scored this one 1 grot out of 2, and here is why. I think it's very good, but your opponents aren't going to want to get within 6 inches of you anyway. Because if they do, hey, I'm tagging you with a Bloodthirster, right? As long as your opponent hasn't been savvy, because something they could do is, as long as if you're in combat with the unit, which you probably won't be, because you probably would have killed it, but they could wait until all the other moves have done, and then fall back with that unit. So as long as they haven't done that, basically, you can Deadly Demise right on a 2+. But what I was saying was that they're not gonna want to get within 6 inches of you anyway, because you're gonna surge move into them. So why would they get within 6 inches to get within your Deadly Demise range, right? It basically is a guarantee that your opponent won't get within 6 inches, which, you know, it sometimes can be good, but also this enhancement has got the potential to screw you over big time as well. So for that reason, I've only given it 1 grot out of 2. This means in total the enhancements have got 6 out of 8 grots, which is pretty good, with the key ones being Fury's Cage and Brazen Maul, both probably being auto-includes every time you play this detachment. Let's move on to the strats. Now, I've preemptively fired off one, but I'll get into that in a minute. First one into Wrath, Undeniable. This is just a 4+ Fight on Death. 1 CP, 4+ Fight on Death. Nice and simple. Bit of a shame when I was looking through these that this wasn't a 4+ Fight on Death, and then if it's a special thing or if something's happened, like I don't know, if you killed a unit, 3+ Fight on Death, because the conditional extra Fight on Death, like on a 3+, is what a lot of other armies have. I think Sisters, one of the detachments for Sisters does. I think I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I know it's a thing that a lot of other armies have. I think the Dark Angels detachment has one too. So 4+ Fight and Death, it's okay. It's not too bad. On a unit of blood letters, it's okay. But if you're looking at a unit like a Bloodthirster to Fight on Death on a 4+, don't know. I probably wouldn't go for it, but it depends how dire your situation is, I guess. It's okay. I've given it 1 grot out of 2. I've fired one off preemptively again, I apologise. But that gets 1 grot out of 2. Next up is Blood Begets Skulls, Advance and Charge. This is 2, I'll just tell you now. This Advance and Charge, you probably already know, is just great. We had it in the index detachment. It was a 2 there. It's a 2 now. Advance and Charge just means, basically, if your opponent is looking at your threat ranges, they have to add on 6. Right, that is basically what any good opponent will do, 5 or 6 onto your threat range, which on a unit like Bloodletters, which only move 6, right, with an add 1 to charge, it's just big. Because it means that you can then fly across the board, maybe, and extend that threat range massively. Getting in combat more of the time, zooming up the board, especially when your opponent doesn't want to go within those areas and you can screen out large areas of the board, is very good. Next up, Gore-Hungry Onslaughts. Move through terrain. All of the new Demons detachments have this. And it's very powerful. Being able to move through terrain, especially with units like Blood Crushers, which really don't like terrain, but also Bloodthirsters and Scarbrand and other units. I don't know if Soulgrinders can use this, if I'm honest, but I wouldn't because I don't play with them. It's just big. It's 1 CP. It is 2 grots out of 2. It's not popping up, but it is. It's 2 grots out of 2. Move through terrain. You would love to see it. Next up is Fool's Flight. Now, I'm a bit disappointed with this one, if I'm honest, but I'll get into it. 2 CP. After an enemy unit falls back within 6 inches of a corn unit, you can charge them. Well, this isn't the exact wording, but I've simplified it down a little bit. But this is basically what it means. For 2 CP, after an enemy unit falls back, if they fall back within 6 inches of a corn unit, you can go and charge them. Now, this is powerful, right? Because, you know, hey, you fall back from me, I'm going to charge you again. Brilliant. But not only is this very situational, because it's quite rare that your opponent will fall back within 6 inches, and, you know, probably quite rare that your opponent will still be in combat after being in combat with a Khorne unit. But it's also 2 CP. So it's a bit like, will I do this all the time? And it's 2 CP? Probably not. So I've decided to give this one 0 grots out of 2. If you're watching the video, then you can see my PowerPoint is messing up a little bit, but I'm just going to roll with it. Next up is Skulls Beget Blood. This isn't Blood Beget Skulls, this is Skulls Beget Blood. This is basically a grenade, right? This is just a grenade from a Khorne infantry or mounted unit, so Bloodletters or Blood Crushers or I guess any of the characters. As long as you're not within engagement, you get to grenade them. 6 dice, every 4 up is a mortal wound. I really like this. I actually think this is very big. Being able to just plink off a couple of wounds from your opponent that isn't in the charge phase. So I don't know if your opponent has an interrupt or something like that would mean your charge wouldn't go to plan. Just plink off a couple mortal wounds because, you know, you're in a Khorne army, you're not going to have much shooting. There's a lot of times that you want to just plink off some wounds from an opponent that you can't always get to, right? So I've given this one 1 out of 2 grots. It's very, I think it's good, but I don't think it's crazy good. Finally is Sheathed in Brass. Khorne unit gets a 3-up save. This is nice, you know, it means that we are not strictly only invuln saves. I guess we kind of are still, but for 1 CP, we can not only be invuln saves. You'll see most of the time on Bloodletters, and, you know, it probably just helps them survive a bit more. If your opponent's has got some AP1, I guess AP2 as well, shooting that's coming into you and you're in cover, just means that your Bloodletters, I guess whatever it is shooting, but it'll probably be Bloodletters, maybe Blood Crushers, gets a 3-up save instead of their 5-up invuln. So, you know, add 1, add 2 to save sometimes. It can be quite big. In total, I've given this 7 out of 12 grots. Let's count that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. 7 out of 10 at 12 grots. You know, this is good. I like it. I'm a fan of it. There's some in here that I think you're going to be using a lot. Blood Beget Skulls, Advance and Charge, Core, Hungry Onslaught, Move Through Terrain. Probably Grenade as well, right? Bit situational, but I think there's a good suite of strats in here. And 7 out of 12 grots is what I will give them. Finally, let's talk about the synergy within this detachment. As you can see, I'll just say now, I've given it 6 out of 10 grots, but I'll get on to why in a second. So, with this Khorne, I'll just read out what it says here. In order to benefit most from the detachment rule, you want to push out your no-move screen as far as possible. This can be done by throwing units like Fleshhounds or even Blood Crushers at your opponent or locking them down. I haven't even mentioned Fleshhounds yet, but yes, that is something you can definitely do. Speeding up the board with these units, Fleshhounds and Blood Crushers will just mean that it's really hard for your opponent to do stuff. As long as you kill whatever you go in and charge, and then you've got free reign to surge move into them in your next turn, your opponent won't want to end a move within 6 inches of you. And sometimes that's very hard, especially if they want to move to an objective or do a secondary. You know, you just lock them down and then you're in combat with them and then you fight them and then you do the same thing the next turn. Right? That is what this detachment wants to do. And there are ways to do this better. So, units like the Rendmaster on Bloodthrone, which I haven't mentioned that much until late, really helps these units, Blood Crushers and Fleshhounds, kill the unit they're going into. And this is because you can stack their buff, which is add 1 strength AP and damage, right? So 2 of those units, it's not an aura. You get to pick a unit within 18 inches of them and visible in the fight phase. And so if you've got 2, you get add 2 strength, add 2 AP, add 2 damage. It means Fleshhounds and Blood Crushers just hit so hard. And that is a good thing, right? In order to get the most out of reasonable units melee stats, so I'm thinking Bloodletters, you know, their melee attacks are reasonable. You want to stay near to Scarbrands and your Bloodthirsters. You know, this is going to be synergy to take hold of in all of the detachments, if I'm honest, right? Staying near to your big demons, your greater demons, Scarbrand, probably the Bloodthirster as well, obviously. It's going to mean that these units hit a lot harder. Units like Bloodletters love being near Scarbrands, getting up on attack 20 to 30 is a 50% damage increase basically on all of them. And then when they're getting up onto hit and, you know, reroll wounds and dev wounds or add 1 to wound, right? You can really stack these buffs on these good units melee profiles, especially with Red Masters on Blood Thrones, and, you know, A Scarbrand, a character, and a Red Master of Blood Throne means that unit Bloodletters with character basically kill whenever they go into, right? It's a bit crazy. And you're going to want this in order for these units to punch up. I think with this detachment, the best way to play it, right? I mean, I'll get into this in a minute as well, but there's a couple of different ways you could play this detachment. One of them is going to be just a full aggro, as I said earlier, with Blood Crushers and Flesh Hounds, jamming up your opponent's board. Not jamming up your opponent, don't do that. He would not like that, or she. But going into your opponent, rushing them down, hitting them with hard units, or it's going to be a bit of a trading game, right? Where you throw out a couple of key units, hopefully sticky some points, and then say, hey, if you come to me, you're going to be able to kill this unit, as long as you don't let me go into combat with you. But then I'm just going to hit you with Bloodthirsters and Blood Crushers and just kill you until you're very dead in the face, right? And as it says here, utilising things like Rapid Ingress is a great way to do this. Some of your units are actually quite slow. I'm only thinking Bloodletters and Scarbrand. You know, the other ones are pretty speedy, especially with Advance and Charge. But Bloodletters and Scarbrand really benefit from the abilities like Rapid Ingress. Rapid Ingress is a brilliant strat-agen, and this is a great way to access different parts of the board. You know, all your units deep strike, and a Scarbrand rapid ingressing down. Taking up a big piece of real estate on the board, and then charging up into your opponent could be great. There's something else you can do with Rapid Ingress with Flesh Hounds as well, where if you have a unit of Flesh Hounds in Deep Strike, you Rapid Ingress them, that unit can then heroically intervene for free in your turn. So let's say you Rapid Ingress them down next to a unit, not Plague Bearers, because this is Khorne, Bloodletters, right? Your opponent will then charge them in their charging phase, and I don't know, let's say the unit charging you is a unit of Khorne Berserkers. If they're quite far away, but they're in one long string, one long line, and they're hoping to pile into you, what you do is your opponent charges you. You then heroically intervene with the Flesh Hounds that are then within 6 inches of that unit that's charged because they've come up. You base all of your opponent's models, or as many as you can, that aren't currently within engagement range of Khorne units. And it basically means that they have to fight the Flesh Hounds. So quickly, Khorne Berserkers charging you in one long line. When they charge you, let's say only one or two can base the unit of Bloodletters, you can then go and base them so that those models can't pile in round to your unit, and you save a unit of Bloodletters. That's essentially what it is. As I said, this is going to get 6 out of 10 on the synergy scale. You know, being demons, there's not tons of stuff you can do, but there's enough so that, as I said, you can make your reasonable melee stat go a bit Super Saiyan and destroy anything they go into. And with units like Skull Cannons and Ren Masters of Blood Thrones, I say Skull Cannons because they're popping up a bit of fire, especially units grenading, you can blink off a lot of enemy units and then go in, kill it, and then have a big screen of no move within 6 inches. Something I didn't mention, which I should have done because it's my video and I should say this, but is that, hey, I'm going to give you an example list. But I should have said that at the start. So, hey, I'm going to give you an example list now. This is a list I built for the Blood Legion of Khorne, and I'll just run you through it quickly. First up, we got Scarbrand. I think Scarbrand is a bit of an essential. No, it's not a bit of an essential. He is essential in every Khorne Blood Legion list you bring. He's just good for the points, 305. He hits super duper hard in melee. He's tough to kill. Gives add one attack, which is going to be very important on units like Blood Crushers, which you can see on the screen now. Bloodletters, Flesh Hounds, and when you stack those with other things, they can go crazy. So Scarbrand's pretty essential. 2 Blood Masters in here. So I was debating for a while, what's better, Skull Taker or Blood Master, but I personally like the Blood Master. For 65 points, I think it's 5 attacks on 2s. Strength, I think it's 6, AP 2, damage 3. Is just very good. And then giving your unit add 1 to wound is a great buff for your Khorne unit. Suddenly you're re-rolling most, I think it's just wounds of 1 basically, unless your opponent's under half strength. Add 1 to wound, meaning that, let's say you get a strength buff from the Ren Master on Blood Throne, your Bloodletters can then be strength 6, add 1 to wound, so you're wounding T10 on 4s, doing so much damage, right? Blood Masters, very good for the points. And that 6-inch consolidation, Champion's Road or something like that, Something's Road, can't remember what road he is on, but 6-inch consolidation can be very big as well. I'm just thinking tagging as many units as you can, tying them all up. 2 of those, they're going to be attaching into 2 units of 10 Bloodletters. You need those. Then we've got 1 Bloodthirster with Fury's Cage. I've only got 1 Bloodthirster on this list because I think Bloodthirster and a Scarbrand, I think that's enough. He's obviously got the Great Axe. He's got Fury's Cage to mean he's rerolling hits and wounds. Amazing. I think in all of these lists you're going to want a Bloodthirster with Fury's Cage. He is a must-take. From there we've got Renmaster on Blood Throne. I've mentioned him quite a lot. He's quite a lot of points. He did get an increase in points, but that buff can just devastate an enemy unit. And he's no slouch in melee himself, and he can also regain wounds when he's fighting and killing characters. So, he's a little action though, he's a little character, but then when it's time to fight, he goes in hard. Then I've got a Skullmaster in my list, so I was debating on doing this, but he's basically here for a carrier for Brazen Maw. This one's 15 points, I might have said it's 20, I can't remember. But it will mean his unit add 2 to charge, which will be add 3 to charge in total. Sorry, I just had something going on there. And that will attach into one of the unit of 6 Blood Crushers. It will mean that they gain devastating wounds on the horn attacks, as well as just being another guide to be doing mortal wounds on their charge move. And with add 2 to charge, being add 3 to charge, that unit will then be able to go 10 inches, advance and charge, maybe it's a 5, whatever. Your opponent will probably estimate it to be around a 5. That's 15, add 3 is 18, and you're going to charge on top of that. So crazy threat ranges with these quite devastating units, and being able to move through walls means Blood Crushers are great. After the Bloodletters, there's 3 Nurglings. I think 3 Nurglings is essential in every single Demon's list you play, at least 3. Infiltrating, the only infiltrating real units that we have, because I don't rate Blue Horrors that much, just means that in matches like GSC or Tyranids, what's it called? The one that runs at you. I can't remember the name of it right now. That annoys me now. I can't remember the name of it. But the one that runs into you with all the Genestealers and other armies in the game that want to infiltrate and take up the board real estate. They're there. 10 Plague Bearers. I think they're also essential in every Demon's list. Stick your back point. Move up. Take up real estate. Do actions later. BOC later. Then I got 2 units of 6 Blood Crushers. I was just blowing their horn about how good they are, and they are good, right? Because for 440 points, you get 12 of them. They're super tough. T7, 4 up invuln, 4 wounds. They're really durable. They don't do crazy amounts of damage, I'll be honest. They can be a bit underwhelming. And it's the charged mortals that are really swingy. But if you roll well on them, especially with the 7-man unit with the Skullmaster, obviously he's going to be better. They'll just go in, kill probably an enemy unit, or put some mortal wounds on a big enemy unit. With the Renmaster on Blood Throne, definitely go and kill an enemy unit. Take up loads of space on the board. That's their role basically. And they're just super good. High OC, going to be taking up loads of the board. And then finally, I've got 2 units of 5 Fleshhounds. I'll probably start one in Deep Strike, just as a rapid ingress target for that move that I mentioned earlier, or maybe even just an action doer. They're not that expensive, but 5 of them for 70 points. Then with the Renmaster on Blood Throne ability, maybe next to Scarbrand as well, will mean that they'll go up to 20 attacks and high strength and high damage. Add 1 damage when you're damage 1. It's very good, 100% damage increase. So I think Fleshhounds are very good, and as well, they're just a bit of a screening unit. So I hope I didn't talk too fast there, but that is a 2,000 point list that I will be bringing to some of my games soon, because I'm really looking forward to trying this out. So let's look a little bit at the overview. I've already talked a bit about this attachment playing into 2 archetypes, one being a fast-moving, stat-checky melee force that battles with your opponent with the force of 1,000,000 Blood Crushers and Bloodthirsters, and hopes that your opponent can't really kill enough before you kill them. And normally they would be able to kill you because you're not that durable, but if you kill enough on your go turns, then, killing 12 Blood Crushers as well as a Bloodthirster and a Scarbrand, it's a tall task. Not a lot of armies will be able to do that if you just throw them at them. So that's a reasonable thing. Creating those areas of the board that your opponent can't move into, funneling them down into certain areas, and then being able to charge at them with the extended range on the Blood Crushers, or advance and charging Bloodletters, or deep striking, whatever, is quite good. Or, as I said earlier, a skirmish trade focus build that keys off of sticking objectives and surge moving in order to tie your opponent up and then going in for the kill. Right? I think that is probably my preferred way to play the army. Throwing out units like Flesh Hounds, giving them the buffs, hoping they go in, kill the enemy unit, sticky it right, and then force your opponents to deal with them. If they're inside a building, they're going to need to come at you, and then you surge, move into them, and then you get into them with other shit, right? I do say at the bottom here, though, I don't think that all the Khorne units are that competitive, and I think that is the difference between the Khorne one and the Slaanesh one. The Slaanesh one has a better detachment rule, and I will be honest there, but also I think the Salaanesh units are just a bit more competitive than the Khorne ones. The best Khorne unit is Blood Crushers by far. Scarbrand is good, but Blood Crushers are very good. So there's only so many of those you can spam as well. You could take a third unit, put it in Deep Strike. Maybe that is what you can do with your lists, because I think that is worth it. But there's only so much that these data sheets that are quite expensive will do for you. They can kill your opponent. How can they survive though? That's the question. So in total, this detachment will get a grand total of 26 out of 40 grots. I think I've done the maths there. Let me know if I haven't, but I'm pretty sure I have. 26 out of 40 is pretty good. The Demonic Incursion, I think, was slightly higher than this. Scintillating Legion lower than this. So it's a bit middling in its score. I think there is some strength in this detachment though, so I'm really looking forward to experimenting and looking at how I can make the most out of these expensive but very killy and a bit, don't know what the word is, tricky units, I guess, to go into. So that's been the video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're watching till the end, I thank you even more. Please let me know your thoughts on this detachment, and if there's anything that I've missed, just let me know down in the comments below. The next video I'm going to be making is on the Exess Legion. The Legion of Exess, I guess. So you say that 10 times fast. I'm really looking forward to that, because hey, I think that's the most competitive one. You probably know that too if you've been looking at the recent results in competitive Warhammer. But that's where I'm going to end it. Thank you very much again, and please let me know if you've got any thoughts down in the comments below. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.